The country is remembering former President Jimmy Carter ahead of the funeral planned for tomorrow at the National Cathedral in Washington. His casket is in Washington now. This is a live picture of it lying in state at the U.S. Capitol. After tomorrow's funeral, the body will be taken back to Georgia for a private burial service. New York One Washington reporter Kevin Fry takes a look back at the history of presidential funerals and what these farewells reveal about the men who've been president and the events of their time in office.
Like with most presidential traditions, George Washington is a good place to start. America's first commander-in-chief requested a private funeral without public eulogies or parades, but that wish was denied.
Hundreds of mourners flocked to Mount Vernon to pay their respects. Mock funerals are held throughout the entire country, celebrating George Washington as a national figure.
Throughout the 19th century, presidential funerals would vary in size, from small local gatherings to large outdoor tributes. The funeral procession in New York City for Ulysses S. Grant in 1885 drew an estimated 1.5 million people, the largest demonstration in the country to that point. Grant, who as a Union general helped to end the Civil War, was then buried here, still the largest mausoleum in North America, on Manhattan's Upper West Side.
This was really seen as the right moment, the right man, for really almost to celebrate reunification and reconciliation. Even at the funeral, there was some former Confederate soldiers that had marched in the funeral procession.
It was Abraham Lincoln's death after being shot here at Ford's Theater, though, that helped set the standard for presidential memorials. He was the first commander-in-chief to lie in state in the U.S. Capitol Rotunda, a now common practice. Thanks to the growing ubiquity of the railroad, many Americans participated in the grieving process firsthand. Lincoln's funeral train making a 1,700-mile journey, including stops in New York, Philadelphia, and Chicago.
Approximately 1.5 million people saw Lincoln's remains. Approximately 8 million people would have either seen the funeral train or seen the procession.
Nearly a century later, when another assassination rocked the nation, John F. Kennedy's wife, Jackie, looked to Lincoln's funeral as a model for how the country would say goodbye. JFK's funeral was the first broadcast on TV, allowing even more Americans to participate. Since then, these funerals are now very public affairs, and the rituals often familiar. Presidents begin planning their funerals while still in office, giving them more of a direct say in what their final send-offs look like, what traditions they choose to follow or not, revealing a bit about who they are. Take Harry Truman, who opted for a smaller service back home in Missouri.
Truman did not see himself as a sort of president for life. I think he rejected the pomp and the pageantry often associated with the presidency, and independence was the place that he loved.
This week, Jimmy Carter is providing similar insights about who he was and how he wants to be remembered. In Washington, Kevin Fry, New York One.